purpose, that our life has a beginning, it has an end, and it has movement all the way through. And so we designated the Sundays as what we do as we move into a trip or going somewhere. There is that time of anticipation when we decide where we're going, what it looks like, what it could be, where we want to go. And then when we've made that decision, it is a moment of preparation. What do you pack? What do you take? What do you wear? What do you do? And today, it's a little different because we've anticipated, we've prepared, and we've left, and now we get to the point of the unexpected. Because no trip is complete without some obstacle, some detour, some arrangement, hotel reservation that went awry when you got there. And what does that mean? How do we deal with the journey towards joy and happiness and what we think and raise up as Christmas and what it's all about? And yet we all know in the world it's not that smooth and it's not that easy. That life is not that simple. Stuff happens. A few years back, every year, it's in January now, it used to be following Easter, there's a gathering of clergy of larger churches in the United Church of Christ. There's about 50 of us from across the country, and we usually meet for 3 or 4 days and discuss what's going on and try to help each other and swap stories and so forth. Well, they come to Florida now because obviously, and now they've moved it to January, go figure that, right? But it used to be in the spring, and when I was in Chicago, the one year they had it in St. Louis. And so knowing that it's always the same day, the same time and everything, I had the office make all the reservations, call, get the registration in, get my airline tickets, and go. And that day arrived, and I drove down to O'Hare Airport, and fought all that you do when you go to the airport, got on the plane, flew into St. Louis, got a taxi, went to the hotel, went to the desk, went to register, went up to room, unpacked my clothes and went down and said, "Where is everybody?" There's a problem. I was a week early. Can't make that stuff up. Being the reader of fine print that I am, I had overlooked that they had changed it by a week because of something that changed. And yes, indeed, I was in the great city of St. Louis with so much to do a week ahead. I'm sure you have better stories because whenever you take a trip, there's just something, right? And that's what makes it an adventure. Well, the same holds true for Christmas and the Christmas narrative. When you imagine that these people are on a trip, all the individuals involved in creating this pageant that we celebrate, this setting, this picture, they're going somewhere. They've come from somewhere and they have a destination. Some of them know where the destination is, and others, it is a mystery. It is an unknown occurrence they are simply seeking. You have Mary and Joseph. They're traveling from northern Israel. It's about 70, 80 miles from Nazareth down to Bethlehem. And if you travel through the center of the country, well, you probably wouldn't because that's Samaria, the West Bank now. It's very hilly and so forth. And they probably traveled down the Jordan River, which is much smoother. But I would guess they traveled in a caravan with other people going to Bethlehem. And, besides bandits and other things you might worry about, have you ever done a trip with a group? All kinds of unexpected stuff happens when you go with a group, right? And you got the wise men. The wise men come from Iraq, and of course they rode camels because they couldn't get a direct flight to Jerusalem that year. Lord knows, we think it took them 2 years, right? And then they go to King Herod. And Herod, when the scripture says he was disturbed, well, that's a pretty frightening statement in and of itself. Matthew later tells us that to safeguard the throne, he executes babies or children 2 years and under, and an angel tells Mary and Joseph to flee to Egypt, and the wise men, it said, are smart enough to go home a different way. You see, it's not a smooth and easy story. There are plans, there are goals, there are destinations, but there are also unseen events and obstacles involving people and things. What's my point? My point is that society and the church and our culture, what we've done with Christmas is we have eliminated most of that stuff. We have taken the hard realities of this story and we have cauterized them, we have mysticized them, we have smoothed them over, we've made a very nice children's story out of it, but not one that says much about us being saved from anything. You know, the frightening stuff we gloss over, the fear and the trepidation, the worry, the concern, the effort it takes. You know? And what happens then is we build this theology and the church perpetuates it. We give it to other people that whenever you come here, everything is supposed to be easy and joyful and nirvana. And that's not what the scriptures tell us at all. That's not the message of Christmas and the hope that it provides. It's not that lifting up and above and so forth. It is the hard realities of life, and that even in the midst of those, God never deserts us. That's the story. And you can't have the one without the other. You know, the scriptures say a lot of things about God, but there's only one promise God makes again and again and again. God says, I will be with you. That's a promise. No matter what you face, no matter what you go through, no matter the challenge, the struggles, I will be with you. And the Christmas story affirms that. And they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. That's the heart of the story. And it's very revolutionary because in the ancient world and in many religions, God doesn't become a part of humanity. Why would God do that? Why would God need to? And yet the story says that the heartaches and the struggles that we go through, God even knows what it is to go through those. And God says, don't worry, I am with you. We will make it. One of my top 10 biblical passages comes from the book of Isaiah, the 43rd chapter. I love this. The prophet says, when you pass through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be consumed. For I am the Lord your God, and you are precious. You are precious to me. You are honored, and I love you. And they shall call his name Emmanuel, God with us. When I was a child, like every child, I loved Christmas. I mean, it was just great. And it wasn't, this congregation is old enough to know what I'm talking about. It wasn't what it is today, right? You got a couple presents, and the big treat was the Christmas Eve pageant from Sunday school where everybody got peanuts, unshelled peanuts, and hard candy. It was the worst candy in the world. But you really look forward to it. I mean, and so I did. But as I got older, it kind of, I don't know why, I wondered to myself, why do we celebrate Christmas every year? I mean, why do we go through all this rigmarole? You may not know it, but Christmas is a lot of work for us, I mean, y'all know the story, right? So what do we got to add? Why do we go through it time and time again, year after year? I wonder. And then, recently, as I was cogitating about all this, I was driving around town. You know, the lights they have now are really cool, right? They're not the old lights we had that the paint chipped off. Do you remember when the paint used to chip off? Yeah, and you get out the paint and you paint them and they smoke. And you know, I almost caught our house on fire. I did catch our house on fire one year. Do you want me to tell that story or go on to the sermon? I did. People don't let me play with fire at Christmas time. But I was driving around and all these kind of new lights that they have. And let me see, I brought some here. Let me see if I can get them to work. You even have to have an app for these things. Can you believe it? But you have these really cool lights. Guillermo's going to help me a little here, Guillermo. Can you go down? Yeah. I'll let you walk down the aisle. There's a point here, great theological point, I'm sure I will go down in history for. Okay, keep going. There we go. Okay, what's the point? Well, if you look at these lights, stand up. Associates, they're always sitting down. You look at the lights here. First of all, it was work to untangle them. It wasn't easy. And if you look at them and the lights, what are your eyes drawn to? The colors and the lights. And yet the colors and the lights are not side by side, are they? They aren't side by side, are they? There's dark spaces in between. There's dark spaces in between. And that's the way life is. Life isn't a continuum of all the bright and the happy. That's nonsense. It doesn't work that way. Life comes in those events and those spots that lift us, just like Christmas. And you have the choice when you look at this long continuum of the light to see the lights or be one of those people who only see the dark gaps in between. Because I guarantee if that's what you look for, that's all you see. But if you focus on the light is what you'll see. The Gospel of John, I'm done. The Gospel of John says, the light came into the world, and the darkness has yet to overcome it. The darkness has yet to overcome it. So in our lives, our world, our society, our country, there are things that are very troubling. There's some big dark spots out there right now. Big dark spots that make you want to curl up and cry. And there are people just jumping up and down to tell us all about them. Suck us in to their vision of darkness. And we must resist. Living in darkness for a person of faith is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. Someone asked me this week, though, but how do you tell who's telling the truth? How do you tell who should we follow? Who should we listen to? And I thought about it, and it's really quite easy. The Apostle Paul says, whatever is honorable, whatever is loving, whatever is joyful, whatever is pure and admirable, think on these things. These are the real things. These are the light that's come into the world. Cling to these things. And your trip, the trip you're on right now, the trip of your life, the trip of being parents, the trip of growing up, the trip to Christmas that you are all taking, that trip, if you focus on the light, just might be the trip of a lifetime. Amen.